Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate, and we're going to the Big 12 as BYU heads on the road to play TCU. BYU coming off an off week, a lot of confidence around this program, playing a TCU team that just lost their starting quarterback in Chandler Morris, and quite frankly, just kind of lacking that identity on the offensive side of the ball. Kind of want to dig into what we're seeing from this TCU offense and why we're seeing some of these growing pains and struggles. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. Again, the support that you guys have shown the boys for all of these game breakdowns truly does mean a lot. I love diving into these teams, talking matchups. The support from you guys has been awesome. So if you do enjoy the content, you want to support the fellas, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. And I want to start with TCU and TCU fans. Again, want to hear your takes on this. When I watch back the film on this TCU team, and this is a team we talked a lot about in the offseason, we talked a lot about last year. The biggest thing I'm missing is I think you're just seeing some growing pains here, right? At the end of the day, you lost Max Duggan, a Heisman caliber quarterback. You lost arguably the best wide receiver in the country in Quentin Johnston. And then you lose your offensive coordinator in Garrett Riley, who did a tremendous job last year with TCU. I think the problem is, as much as there was a lot of hype surrounding some of the guys coming in the transfer portal, they aren't Quentin Johnston. They aren't Darius Davis, Tay Barber, and the chemistry that Max Duggan and those wide receivers had. And you're starting to see an offense that I don't really think has an identity, but more importantly, doesn't really have like the playmakers that they want to go to in the big spots, right? When they're in the red zone. This is one of the worst teams in the red zone, only scoring on 65% of their trips. That's 133rd in the FBS. The biggest problem, what I'm seeing is third downs, those money downs, red zone opportunities. You don't really have like who's the guy that you're going to. I mean, John Paul Richardson has been solid. Warren Thompson has been solid, but those guys aren't Quentin Johnston. And the biggest moments, I don't think TCU necessarily has those guys, or they haven't found those guys yet that Chandler Morris or who are Josh Hoover wants to go to in those big spots. The second thing is the offensive schematics I don't really love. Like, they're not pushing the ball down the field. One of the things that we loved about this Garrett Riley offense is they attacked all blades of grass on that field, right? Attacking the deeper third, attacking the flats, and letting guys come after the catch. There seemed to be a lot of space that these TCU playmakers were able to operate in last year. This year, it doesn't seem like they're pushing the ball down the field at all. They're kind of allowing a defense to kind of cut the field in half and really just kind of cover the first 15 yards from the line of scrimmage. I think those are some of the problems that you're seeing from this TCU offense. And the one thing that's been working, Amani Bailey, I mean, he was a guy that was really good last year, just buried in the depth chart behind dudes like Kendre Miller. He's been awesome, averaging almost 6 yards per carry. But outside of that, like, the identity from this TCU team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is not there. Now, for BYU, on the defensive side of the ball, it's just a solid group. And when you have linebackers like Ben Bywater, Max Tooley, AJV, like, it's such a good privilege and such a good commodity to have. And we talked about this with this BYU team. Why are they winning so many games? They're playing really solid football on both sides of the ball. They're not giving up a ton of explosive plays. They're playing really, really well in the red zone. That's the recipe for winning football. And you're seeing BYU exactly do that. Do they have a top 5 or a top first round draft pick on this defense? No. But they have 11 guys who are playing their role and doing it at a high level. And that's why you're seeing the numbers for this BYU defense be pretty solid. Now, on the offensive side of the ball for BYU, this is what excites me the most. Is one, you're getting some guys back from the bye week who I think will add a ton of value to this BYU offense. Keaton Slovis, though, when you go back and watch him, this is the best he's looked since his days at USC. He transfers to Pitt last year, does not look like himself. You're seeing him throw some really nice passes. Now, you got to cut down on some of these turnovers, but what you're seeing from Keaton Slovis, if you're a BYU fan heading into this Big 12 schedule, I think you're seeing a lot of good things. The wide receiver position, it's been solid. It's going to get better, right? Chase Roberts has looked awesome. Darius Lassiter stepped up. Isaac Rex, I continue to think, is one of the best tight ends in the country. Who do we talk about in the offseason that I thought was the best wide receiver in this BYU room? Cody Epps. It sounds like he's going to be back from that bye week. Keanu Hill continues to get healthy. You add Cody Epps, I think you add another piece, kind of another dynamic to this offense that it might have been missing. Cody Epps, electric with the ball in his hands, creates separation extremely well. He's a guy that hit the transfer portal. Every single Power 5 team in the country was contacting Cody Epps. Decides to come back to BYU. A healthy Cody Epps, I think, provides a ton of juice to this offense. And Aiden Robbins coming back at the running back position. This was an offense that's really struggling to run the football. It's not like they want to do it a ton, but you want to run the football at a decent level. LJ Martin, a true freshman, has been doing a solid job, but adding Aiden Robbins back into this mix, I think, will help this rushing attack. And I expect big things from this BYU offense during the second half of the season as they get some of these guys healthy. You look at this TCU defense, and the biggest thing that, again, the difference that you're seeing from this TCU team from last year to this year, it's not a bad defense. And I'm not really blaming the struggles from this TCU team on the defensive side of the ball. It's definitely more on the offense, but they're not creating the negative plays like you saw last year. You go back to that Michigan game in the college football playoffs. Obviously, as a Michigan fan, I know this all too well. Living in the backfield, creating negative plays, forcing teams into these uncomfortable third and long situations. You're not seeing that penetration and kind of winning at the point of attack that you saw last year. And again, you lose a lot of talent. And I think it might have been a little foolish of us to kind of expect this TCU team to take right where they left off from that 2022 season, because they, even on the defensive side of the ball, lost a lot of talent. Dylan Horton was one of my favorite defensive line prospects in the NFL draft. He's gone. D. Winters, really, really good. Hodges Tomlinson in the back end, he was phenomenal. Like, they lost a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball too, and you're starting to see some struggles. Now, I still think there are a lot of guys who are playing some good football for TCU. The struggles, and I think why you're seeing them lose these games, have been a lot more on the offensive side of the ball, committing a lot of penalties, not forcing as many turnovers. Like, these are some of the reasons why you're not seeing TCU win the games that they were winning last year. Getting to the pick, BYU heading on the road. This number's bounced around a little bit. I think it's sitting around 4.5 TCU favorites. I'm going to say this, and I think a lot of TCU fans would agree with me. This is not a team that I'm looking forward to betting on right now. A lot of that identity of the winning football that you saw last year, it's not quite there this year. I still am really high on Sonny Dykes and what he can do with this program, but I do think he needs another recruiting cycle and another transfer portal cycle to continue to kind of replenish that talent that they lost. You have a backup quarterback coming in who I should have noted, like, I don't think TCU is that confident in, because if you remember in the offseason, like, they were going hard in the transfer portal trying to get a quarterback in that cycle. They're rocking with Josh Hoover. I don't think they have a ton of confidence in him. Give me BYU in the points. This is a little bit more of a vibes play too. Like, I think BYU coming off an off week, getting some guys healthy, I think is in a better spot to win this game than TCU coming off 2 straight losses, not really having an identity on the offensive side of the football. Gonna rock with the BYU Cougars. This is a team that I think is really, really good. Excited for this one. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all